Good morning or afternoon or evening, whenever you're watching this. We're recording it in the morning, but welcome to the Bayou Progressive. I'm Quentin Anthony Anderson, and today I'm joined by John Day, a Democratic candidate for Congress in Louisiana's 3rd Congressional District. Day is running in a competitive Democratic primary, competing for the chance to take on Republican Congressman and arguably the nation's worst Congressman, Clay Higgins. On his campaign website, Day, a veteran, presents himself as a moderate working class Democrat focused on lowering costs, improving pay, and making communities safer and delivering real storm protection, while arguing that government should work for the people, not parties. So, John, thank you for joining me.
Thanks for providing the forum and the space and time, Quentin. Good to be
Yeah,
here.
absolutely. Absolutely. So let's start at the beginning, particularly because most, if not all, of the candidates that are running in the midterms on the Democratic side are relatively newcomers, even if they've run before. At this scale and to most of the state, they're introducing themselves. So, for the people who are just now learning your name and learning who you are and learning about your candidacy, who is John Day and why in the world are you running for Congress right now?
I'm John Day, and I'm sitting in the back here of a rent house because I had a house fire. So if you see pets or cats or dogs, everyone's okay. We lost everything that didn't matter. I have 30 years of experience in healthcare, insurance, and the private sector, and I've spent those sections of my life translating fine print. It's the fine print. It's sort of my message. It's where they hide the devil in the details, like my papa would say. And I was talking with the next generation, my daughter, her friends, my friends at a diner less than 2 weeks after the house fire. And I decided that complaining on the socials wasn't enough, complaining at the diner wasn't enough, and that we had taken enough of a wrong turn that I wanted to see what could I do if I gave everything. And so that literally translated, and you'll hear it more. I leaned down. I hope my phone doesn't go off, but I said, "Hey Siri, how do you run for Congress?" And my friends kind of laughed, and we kind of sat there, and I was like, "Okay, Clay Higgins is our representative." So that's 427 to 1. Epstein files the entire Congress. Every Republican voted to release this for transparency. I'm running against the one guy who said, "No, let's protect the pedophiles because they might some innocent people, friends might get hurt." I was incensed. That was one of the one things. And when I learned more about Clay, and I'm a proud father who had to fight for custody of my youngest daughter, and found out this is a man who still owes child support. This is a man, and then let's get out of his personal. Let's just get into, does he show up for work? He misses 3 times as many votes as the average congressperson. He's proposed little to no legislation, and Steve Scalise, Mike Johnson, both very powerful voices for Louisiana in Congress, regardless of whether you like them or not, whether you support their party or views or not. Inarguably, they're powerful voices, and they won't even give this guy a job, put him on committees, let him speak, because he's a fool. He's a embarrassment. He's the water boy represented as Louisiana. Great movie. Love Adam Sandler. Nice guy. But we're better than that, and we deserve better than that.
Okay, well said. So your campaign opens by saying that you're running to represent the people who don't have lobbyists, which, to be fair, in our democracy, your lobbyist should be your representative. But that's the way that it is in textbooks and on Schoolhouse Rock.
Well, I'd rather owe my seat to my neighbor than some corporate
That's
lobby.
right. Yeah, and I think that's when people talk about money in politics and things like that. I think what they're envisioning is the sort of backroom transactional relationship that lobbyists have with politicians, where really what matters is those transactions, not what happened on the campaign trail, not the transaction between voter and politician, but
Correct.
politician and lobbyists. But
Between
uh,
constituent and representative.
and that's the world as it should be, right? But
Correct.
but but campaigns exist in the world as it is. And you say that who you want to represent are people who work, who raise kids, who serve, build, teach, nurse, weld, drive, and clean up after storms. uh that's very strong language and very descriptive language. What in your own life makes you feel like you're prepared to help and understand those people if you were to go to Congress?
Let's start off with, I am those people. Other than my demographic, I've lived a very inclusive, diverse life. Um, I've served, whether it was in the Navy or whether it was a table, bugs, whether it
No.
was a table, it's Louisiana, or whether it was at a board or an art council, I've served throughout my whole life. Um, it's simply a matter of what can I do now? I've spent the last few years after COVID being a professional writer and helping with impact-based films in indigenous communities. And so I keep finding myself pushing towards expressing my values, expressing shared values, finding out what the shared values of the community are. And the more I go into politics and look at all this, we have so many shared values as Americans first,
Yeah.
as the people first, the people that actually build the wealth. We have somehow allowed our governing system to be run by a few billionaires and some cultish style politics. This doesn't work for us. This is not entertainment. Sure, you want your politicians to be engaging and to be maybe funny, maybe they can poke fun at themselves, but you want them to be smart, intelligent, understand policy, understand procedure, understand protocol. So you can take all this stuff and get it back down and sit in a diner or a church or a community center and say, hey, y'all, this is what they mean. Hey, y'all, this is what's going on. And that started back years ago when I'd take the amendments that we all get about a $0.5 drainage and this and they'd be a paragraph long, a paragraph and a half. And I'd sit there with my wife and I'd sit there with my kids and I'd say, okay, even though this is framed as the People's Good, Clean, New Drainage Act, it's actually bad because they've named it to try to get you to vote for it, but here's what it means. So I want to do that on a level that takes my life experience and brings that to Washington because I don't think the 3rd Congressional District is being listened to.
Okay. And I think a good example of the sort of naming mechanism as being a little bit of BS is things like the Patriot Act after 9/11, right? Because
Yeah,
what they
for
knew
example.
was that if most people aren't reading the details, then all that they hear is that their Democratic congressman or Democratic senator voted
Correct.
against the Patriot Act. The
Right.
Patriot Act? Like, how could you vote against the Patriot Act? So,
Right.
I
Well,
think
the Fourth
Democrat
Amendment, let's start there, but
Exactly,
keep
right? I
going,
mean, but who
Sure.
lets the details get in the way, right? Who lets and
Right.
that's one of the problems sometimes that we as Democrats have had is that sometimes we don't understand the effectiveness or we don't embrace the effectiveness that Republicans have of what the bumper sticker can do, the bumper sticker slogan, right? Republicans, they don't have any of the substance, but they are very good at boiling everything down to about 3 syllables. And there's a lot of people who don't think beyond the 3 syllables. As soon as you start getting on to the fourth or the fifth one, their eyes glaze over and they just want it boiled down as simple as possible. And Republicans have done a very good job of kind of catering to the simple, the easy answer, the easy to understand, even if it's wrong.
To dovetail on your question earlier, a good communicator, a good translator is always going to be more effective in translating their ideas, understanding other people's ideas, and bringing those two ideas together. Well, you can't understand French and you can't understand Italian. Well, I understand both. Let me translate for y'all. And so that is what's going to help me be the best congressman on the ticket and the best congressman the 3rd District's had in a long time, is that ability to bring people to the information that's not getting to them. And as a communicator and as a translator, that's why I recognized I'm in politics. I
Yeah,
can't just be the smartest person espousing facts and these, that, and the
exactly.
other, because people want something they can grab onto. They want that bumper sticker. So I chose Americans First for a reason. You see America First on bumper stickers on the news and all this other stuff, and you hear about all this Christian nationalism and you hear about all this Patriot Act sort of things and these war fighters and the Department of War and the give me the thing for peace or I'm going to go bomb Iran. It's just they're lying to our faces and we're taking it. So Americans First, I'm hoping resonates with the people because it's centered around the people. It's centered around the people that these policies affect at a low level. We can talk about big national issues in Congress, but how's your gas? How's your groceries? And in Louisiana, how's your insurance bill? Are you insurance poor? Because that's one of the first words I learned working in insurance. Oh no, I'm insurance poor. What do you mean insurance poor? I'm 19. What does that mean? Well,
No.
that means
Yeah.
that sometimes 15, 18, 22%, 25% of this person's take home what they've earned is
Hmm.
going to insurance just in case something happens. We got to have it, but it needs to be something that works for the people, like some of these other utilities and service companies that are functions of the government, that are quasi government people, that you have regulation and you have oversight. And we've lost that in insurance industry and we've lost that in healthcare.
No, I agree. And I think the other aspect of being insurance poor is that you can have these high premiums and even higher deductibles. So in effect, I mean, what are you paying for? Because you're never going to financially be able to utilize the insurance in the first place.
No, and
Um,
you're not like the rich cats because they'll say, "Oh, we self-insure. I take that $700 a month or $1,700 a month, and I just sack it away."
must
So
be
you, if I
nice.
have a health problem and I buy stocks and this, that, and the other, who in their single mom loving, get the kids home, try to get them fed, knows about how to shift insurance monies into. Ah,
No,
it's ridiculous. It's ridiculous that they're trying to pass this on as a lifestyle that people here in Louisiana can understand. All they want to understand is, how do I get a better paying job? How do I move
hmm
myself forward and be a good American, work hard and be a part of the American dream? How do I give that opportunity to my children? How do I fight my neighbors, fight with my neighbors and for my neighbors? That's what they want. The
no,
one thing I definitely want to get in is, this is a unique area of the country for one major reason. The government and the powers that be like to divide us, but when a hurricane or a storm rolls through the third congressional district, one of the biggest coastlines in
hmm
Louisiana, a lot of that fight disappears. A lot of that we're them and you're us and they are us and they're not us disappears. What happens is faith, family,
hmm
firewood, and trying to drink and eat become priorities, and people become a community. And I think Clay Higgins and the present administration are a storm, and they are a storm worthy enough of paying attention and getting prepared for them, batting down the hatches, because they're going to roll through. It's going to roll through. The sun will come out. But what we
no,
make of that day, we can do it right now. We can do it in May with the Democratic primaries, unifying everybody behind the correct candidates. And then we can do it in November by actually turning this plus 22 red seat blue.
yeah. That is what I've been preaching to the party is that especially this is the least popular president at the least popular time in his administration in the time that he's served. The very least that we can do is try, right, in the midterms, because I think that there's a good chance that a lot of Americans are fed up with the
Yeah,
direction of this country, and it's the responsibility of the Democratic Party to be, even if you're not partisan, it's part of your responsibility as the opposition party to hold the governing party accountable. And so part
correct.
of that means that you have to be competitive. If the governing party knows that come election day, Democrats are just phoning it in, then they're going to govern that way as well, right?
That's
So
right.
take Clay Higgins's vote.
Emboldened.
Take Clay Higgins's vote on the Epstein files. The only reason you ever have the goal to do something like that in politics is because you think that nothing matters back home. You think
That's
that
right.
honestly I could do
Well said.
anything and I can get reelected. And I think part of that is on the part of the Democratic Party. We have to do a better job of making Republicans actually feel like there are consequences to their actions.
I agree with that wholeheartedly. Um, I'd like to see, I want to choose my words very carefully here. I hate to see the apathy in the
Yeah.
Democratic Party, and I hate to see the infighting. Personally, I understand both perspectives of why, multiple, they ain't both, three, four perspectives of
Yeah.
why this candidate, not that candidate, this process, not that process. But it all boils back to what you're saying. We need candidates who are not only engaging and ready to work all day and ready to put on the surf and ready to be attacked, but actually have an understanding of policy procedure and what's needed here and what needs to change, and be able to espouse that, to be able to tell people what that is so they can understand it, bring it back to their communities. Um, this, the first step is flipping one. This
Yep.
is the big blue wave, and one of my kids' friends drew out a cartoon. They were like, "We're going to do political cartoons for you." I'm like, "Great, what do you got?" And they showed a bunch of Democrats, and we were all sitting there as different lions and different leopards and cheetahs, and they were kind of sitting there, and there was wildebeest running by, and one was like kind of sticking its tongue out and limping, and they put Clay Higgins on that one. They're like, "Ooh, he's weak, get him!" And I was like, "That's a great political cartoon." That's, I didn't realize until I started talking to firefighters, farmers. To be frank, in red areas, what's advertised and what's sold to us as red areas. And I go down into these communities, and these folks have the American Eagle behind the flag and the motorcycle on the shirt and all
Yep.
the stuff, and they're angry.
Yeah.
They're mad. I go out. It works just like this. Hi, I'm John Day. I'm running for Congress. No expression, maybe. I'm running against Clay Higgins. Universally positive reaction. The ones that I can tell that are 100% absolutely not going to vote for me, hear anything I say, they look at their shoes because they can't even
Yeah.
come to meet my eyes. But a lot of these folks, I had somebody tell me the most asinine thing I've heard. This guy said, "Well, I don't think I'd vote for Trump again. He's done pissed me off after these 3 times." And I'm like, "Well, he can't run it. What? Keep going. What? But what?" And he goes, "But Clay is just an embarrassment. That fool don't even go to work. I'd vote for you because you like a Democrat like my pawpaw." And he spit. And I was like, "Yeah, spit." you know, we, we have to. When I say I want to work for the people that build bridges and build roads, because that's what my pawpaw did. He was a civil engineer. He built roads. I mean that, and I mean that figuratively and literally.
Yeah.
Figuratively, because they're not our enemies. They're not demons. They're not any of the things they call us. They're misguided. They have the right to change their mind, but there are a whole lot of our neighbors who voted for these fools who are fed up enough to give a serious candidate a chance. My job, get in, flip the seat blue, stick out my elbows, make some room in that seat for someone who doesn't look like me to give more diverse representation to the state of Louisiana. I'll be on record for that from now and all the way through my first congressional term. We'll see where we go from there.
Okay. So let's talk a little politics. This is the
Sure.
first time in a long time that Louisiana has closed primaries, not for every office, but certainly for all the federal offices this year.
Right.
And
News to
part
me
of
when I said
yeah, part of the purpose of primaries, at least the way that I've always understood it, is that you have to first articulate to your party why you are good enough on all the issues to then represent your party in the general election against the Republican. And so it's
agreed.
sort of an internal sort of situation, and then you go external. You
Right.
mentioned the sort of slogan that you've used, which is Americans first, party second. But within a party, obviously, some Democratic voters will hear, language like, no drama, no labels, just work, as trying to sort of sidestep ideology and soften what it means to be a Democrat. So uh, I will ask you a sort of a variation of a question that I always ask people. I usually ask people in 2026 or whatever year it is, what's the difference between a Democrat and a Republican? Um, Combine that with what kind of Democrat are you?
A plank for plank Democrat. My Americans First platform was handwritten by me, pulled straight off the DNC platform.
Mm-hmm.
I took a test right before I registered as a Democrat and right before I signed up to do this to make sure I was online, 50 odd questions. So I thought I was a moderate Democrat. I'm telling people I'm a moderate Democrat, right? Because you want to play
Mm-hmm.
towards the middle of politics. And I'm just thinking that. But then when I start to talk to people in the DNC and people in my local DPECs, I'm 100% zero tolerance on all body autonomy issues. To break that down, that means I'm super pro choice. That means if it's your body, you should have autonomy over it, in most all cases, except for maybe, don't get me, public vaccinations. We still need public health. That's the thing is, but the body autonomy of an adult over their own self. And I share this with permission. I had a family member that would have perished from an ectopic pregnancy if such draconian laws were put into place. I don't need to have that personal experience, but body autonomy's right there, and it should be codified. I'm going to do everything from proposed legislation to a constitutional Congress to try to get a constitutional convention. I've been researching that all morning because I told my daughter 67% of the states and the population, you can rewrite the whole thing. And what I would do given that chance as a Democrat would be codify body autonomy. Then we're going to codify human dignity, which is another way of saying people are equal. Let's make sure all the LGBTQ issues plus issues are addressed and protected, and the dignity to live your life as a human, as an American, in that label only, all sub other labels be equal, needs to be codified into law. So these are big plank issues that a lot of Democrats will shy away from. They'll come in and say, oh, I love the people and I love the work and stuff and damn the billionaires. And I'm with all that. Believe me, that's the bulk of what affects most of us. But being a Democrat means that we're not about just what affects most of us. We're about what affects all of us. So trans rights, tiny percentage of the population, super important. Minority issues throughout various sections of the population, super important. And that's why we need to make room. People always ask me, why did I specifically run for Congress? And I talk about my daughter a lot. I'll tell you this, Quentin. Me and my daughter, both 50, both same money, same verbs coming out of our mouth, same everything, same day, last name. I've still got a chance and an odds better than she does because we live in a district that this, what you look like, still matters to a lot of people that vote. And that saddens me. It actually makes me angry enough to run for Congress and go make a place for my family or my daughter who don't look like me. That's what kind of Democrat I am. And I'm very vocal about that. People are going to attack me. They're going to call me white savior or this or that and the other. I'm wearing some kind of suit or costume, whatever. I have zero political experience, so I can't be judged on my record, but I invite transparency from day one of my congressional office. What kind of Democrat am I? Plank for plank issues. What makes a Democrat different from a Republican? That was a question as well. Yeah. That's kind of why, sorry, I bowed up on you, Quentin. I'm so sorry. I leaned into body autonomy and human dignity because that's where we get into those are not, shouldn't be political issues. Those are social issues. Those are common issues. These are American issues. These are human issues. The fact that we have to make them political issues is a reason enough to have a Democratic Party. Other than that, you're really talking about the working class versus the elites, the people and the teachers and the servers and the nurses and the plant workers. Here's another thing they'll do. LNG guys versus shrimpers. We got them fighting. We can't have them fighting. We need good paying jobs here in Louisiana. We need better energy. We need that energy to be clean. We need it to be regulated so we don't have high cancer alleys. And we don't have people dying because of safety regulations. And we don't have people that want to come to the most beautiful part of Louisiana and fish and hunt because we're spoiling it because we need better jobs. It all has to work in congruence. That's what Congress is for. That's what the government is for, is to make these competing interests all fight for the people and serve the people's interests. To me, that's what being a Democrat is. And that's what being different from a Republican is. I think Republicans used to be, when I was a kid, maybe they were the values, traditional family and all that stuff, but they're speaking to a part of America that I'm not speaking to or not trying to listen to because they want to make it us and them. Republicans are going to push us versus them in my mind, whereas a Democrat's going to go, we're pretty much all us. You can be us too. You only choose to be them. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
So, pardon me.
No, you're good.
So I hope that's a wandering, meandering, but thoughtful answer to your question.
No, I like it. I'm curious. So this is like most gerrymandered districts. This is a district designed to keep Clay Higgins in office. Uh, Knowing that going in, uh, not only what is your path to the nomination because you are in a competitive primary, um, what is your approach in the general election to not just be a protest vote, to not just be, you know, there so that people who don't like Clay Higgins can vote for you, but that it's a foregone conclusion? What is your approach to the 2026 election that, makes it worthwhile if, let's say there's a, and I think I've even shared this with you in a phone call, kind of what I envision, that there's a flash poll in late September, early October, and you're within 10 to 7 points of Clay Higgins.
Mhm.
What gives a donor, what gives a volunteer, what gives a voter the confidence in your strategy in the general election to take a chance on you, to take a chance that you can make up that difference? That's 7 to 10 points and win.
A multifaceted candidate. I don't just have one good angle. I'm starting by putting the people in place. People that are volunteers, people that have experience in running these campaigns, people that have run successful Democratic campaigns, people that were involved with John Bell Edwards and that
Mhm.
had these sort of uphill fights. So part of Sun Tzu's art of war is knowing what kind of battle you're in.
Yeah.
I see this as a totally winnable fight. I always have. The cutout or carve out of my home parish, Calcasieu Parish, where they basically carved out everything but the city of Lake Charles. They actually
Hmm.
did that to strengthen Mike Johnson's position because he's young and they want him in the House for a long time. They are leaving Clay weak.
Hmm.
Um, I plan to continue. My primary message is get out the vote, register, Winter Jungle primary, education, education. I don't have anything bad to say about Tila Bruin or Caleb with a C. Walker. I applaud both of them
Hmm.
for spending their time, their energy, and their money putting themselves up to take Clay down and subject themselves to the attacks that we're all sure to face. That being said, I plan to work every day,
Hmm.
campaign hard throughout all the parishes and the DPECs and the democratic processes to get my name out, win the primary. Now, to your question in September, that's back to the multifaceted candidate. I should have at that point a good unified Democratic base. We should be bringing our base voters out. We should be bringing high election numbers out, enticing those people that this important isn't a presidential election, but it's important enough to get out there. We should be registering new voters. I make a goal of having people hold up their license and their phone and then telling them how to register to vote.
Yeah.
Um, all those are pathways to victory. But what's really going to happen is, frankly, for the people that are here, if we can poll and we can get in those 10 to 7 points by that sort of time frame, we'll have enough support to
Hmm.
blast the airwaves, blast the TV, blast everything that we can to let people know there's an option. And I think people just want to know there's an option. I think people are caught in this rut, and there's 220,000 people that voted for Clay in the last
Hmm.
election, about 100,000 total with all the Democrats. I think it's going to be about 250, 275. You can get all this for Cauchy later if you want, Quentin. But I think it's going to be about 250 or 275 total votes. Me and Steve Karnacki, we talk. And I think that we need to pull about 126,000 votes. I think
Hmm.
that's going to be right around the winning number. So
For the
that means
general.
in the general. So that means I'm going to need every Democrat and and a few more extras, right?
Hmm.
And then we're going to need 20 to 25,000 to either stay home or swap. And every swap is a 2-for-1. There's a lot of apathy and a lot of that he thinks he's safe. I don't think he's as safe as he think he is. And we have to get that message out to people
Hmm.
because if enough people go, well, maybe my vote matters this year, right? Then they'll
Yeah.
vote. How many tens of thousands of Louisianans in the third district aren't going to vote because they just think it doesn't matter? Hopefully, a whole bunch of red ones because they think they got it in the bag. But if we can sneak 5, 10,000 blue ones that know we can win to the polls, registered legally, of course, and have them vote, then we have a real chance of winning. I wouldn't have signed my name if I didn't think we had a real chance. But here, sitting a few weeks later from that, and talking with leaders at the state, local, and even the national level, I'm humbled. I am blown away. Every time I'm nervous and I tense up because I'm shaking hands with what I think is a red voter, and I make Clay Higgins, they want to hug me. Oh God, get him the hell out of there. Okay, thanks. Vote for John Day. So I'm getting more confident every day. I'm getting more emboldened every day. I'm trying to remember I'm a congressman when I'm on Facebook talking about Clay Higgins. So, I'm ready. I'm ready for the scrutiny. I'm ready for the work, and I'm ready for the people's support, and I'm ready to prove that I am the candidate to take this guy down.
Okay, let's talk a little bit of policy then.
You got it.
A major part of your message is kitchen table economics.
That's
On your
right.
platform, you lead with lowering everyday costs and raising take-home pay.
That's
You
right.
focus a lot on healthcare, housing affordability, and insurance reform. So let's tackle affordability, because I do also think that this is uh, likely going to be Democrats' most effective unified message in the midterms. Is that
Mm-hmm.
largely Republicans have made your life more expensive, Democrats are fighting to make it more affordable. But what would you actually fight for in Congress to lower everyday costs? What would be kind of the first sort of big ticket items that you'd go after? Would you raise the minimum wage? Would you, like, what would be the things that you would do or that you'd try to do that you feel would immediately address affordability?
There's two things here. One is you do some of the things that are sitting on the table. You take some of the Democratic leadership and raising the minimum wage and putting some of those standards in nationwide are just as we can do as soon as we have power. The other side of that is, I'll give you a quick example. I was with rural firefighters the other day. I was telling them, I did some quick math, and I was like, do you realize with 1% of the ICE budget that they currently expanded, that we could take just 1%, give them the 99. Take 1%, it's about $600 or $700 million. Give it to just rural fire departments under a certain cap out the thing, and it would almost double their operating budgets.
Mm-hmm.
I was doing this while I was working with these guys while they're selling po' boys, trying to come up with $2,500 because they can't hear themselves on the radio. Like, these are real things that we can do. We can go in and cut budgets and get appropriations and sponsor legislation. Most people have seen the video with the missiles shooting off in Iran, and they're just
Mm-hmm.
1 million, 3 million, 4 million, 5 million. I mean, what are we doing? There are so many examples that we're taking some of this administration's and Republicans Congress's money that they are just shooting off all over the world and demonstrizing people and killing people on our own streets, killing people in their own countries. And we can't use that money we can't give people free lunches. Like, that's the stuff that blows my mind. Like, why can't we go to Congress and say, hey, you know that part where we require people to put their kids in school for 8 hours or we put them in jail? Let's feed those kids. Well, what if the parents? The parents. The parents. Let's feed the kids. Why are we arguing over things like that while we're debating whether a Tomahawk missile from the U.S. killed 170 odd Iranian schoolgirls? These are arrest. We stop. We ceasefire. We stop this whole thing in its tracks. That's the most important thing that people, I hope, understand, is that if Clay Higgins' seat flips blue, along with enough others, we can stop Donald Trump and this administration in its tracks and bring affordability down by measures that we can use that are accessible to our fingertips, not 3 years down the road. That's affordability. Start with that. Gas is going up. How about no wars in Iran? Gas will go down. How about not, making deals with new cartel bosses in Venezuela? And that happened this morning. They're like, oh, by the way, we're going to use a law that's about a century's year old so we can now deal with Venezuela because of shipping, because they're trying to cover their tracks. They started a war they don't know how to get out of. They don't know. They didn't have a plan. Shut the Straits of Hormuz. You sure they're going to do that? Of course they're going to do that. And now they're We have to stop this administration. That will save people money. There are 5 different reasons in the news every day while Clay Higgins and his buddies are blowing your children's inheritance. You're working hard, the Social Security that you're putting in, they're raiding all kinds of little funds. These are your kids, man. The same tournament baseball, tournament basketball, the same ones you collect and sell stuff so they can have money for their dance line. These are the kids' money that they're spending. Your kids' money, my kids' money. That's affordability, and that's how we can change it.
Okay, so let's I was gonna stay on the economics for a little bit, but I wanted to
Happy to.
kind of take your natural segue. How do you feel about the current administration's foreign policy endeavors, in particular the war in Iran, the what I think is a clear illegal takeover of Venezuela, and their projection that they'd like to do this in other places. They've said that Cuba is next on the list. We've already decided that we're willing to blow up NATO to be able to seize Greenland. Somehow we've become the villains in this retelling of the lead up to World War II. What is your take on this administration's foreign policy as we sit here today on Wednesday, March 18th, 2026?
I'm going to try to hit right between the eyes on this one. Most of the world stopped their white colonialism around 1950. The Chinese invaded Tibet. We were still playing around in Korea. But we had just picked up Hawaii, we picked up Alaska. So
Mm-hmm.
that was sort of the end of what a lot of us would like to believe was the colonialism that we now come to recognize, right? So then you're going back and you're trying to figure out, how do we repair those relationships with the people? It's not about, and I don't mean reparations, which are often needed in a lot of situations, but I'm talking about repairing with the people that are there, the land, the economics, the infrastructure. And what we're doing now is this Monroe Doctrine, the Monroe Doctrine. It's blatant. This is colonialism all over again. This is what you do if you are playing Risk and you are not concerned about what happens after you win the game and the whole world burns down after you die.
Mm.
I mean, I can speak more eloquently and talk about Venezuela and one dictator for another. Trump got rid of that guy because he didn't like the way he danced on TV. That's just the facts. You can look it up. Maduro is a monster, and the Ayatollah is a monster. I showed my daughters. I was like, this is what Iranian women look like in the before the Shah took over and before the Islamic Revolution. I actually learned to speak English in Saudi Arabia. My grandfather was working for Aramco over there, building roads and stuff, and so I learned to speak English in Dhahran and Riyadh. So I was always fascinated by all the cultures and the Greek and Turkey and all that stuff. And I said, man, what a shame it is that that took over and women lose their rights and their autonomy and all the subjugation of their bodies and all this other stuff. So you think, wow, we should probably stop that, right? Yeah, sure. The last 6 presidents should have probably stopped that, right? Yeah, sure. But there are better ways to show American values.
Mm-hmm.
And just because one dictator topples another does not make that first dictator a hero. I like to put forward the kind of foreign policy that USAID did before they gutted it. It's what I tell my friends of faith. When I'm talking to my friends of faith, we talk about living a life of faith rather than having words of this is how faith should be. You go up and tell somebody, this is my faith, this is my faith. When you see someone and they live their faith, it's a better testimony. It's a better witness. People take that better. Well, why is Jane so happy all the time and so kind and so loving? Well, let's go talk to Jane, see where she gets that from, right? That's the kind of Americans I want to live around. That's the kind of America that we should be. We should live our values and let people see and know by our values so that when we can intervene, with the people and help them establishing a more self-governing democracy across the world, we can do that. But that's not world police, that's not nation building,
Mhm.
and that's not neocons. These guys are neocons. They're at 100%. We're not neocons. Elect us, literally. And then are doing the exact same thing. That's why you're starting to see some of that MAGA revolt. And you're seeing people that are pro-war and people that are anti-war. They're splitting their own party because they're hypocrisy. There you go. There's another, put that in the difference between Democrats and Republicans. Although I see a lot of things I'd like to work on the Democratic Party, I don't see a whole lot of hypocrisy. You don't find a lot of sexual scandals by moral espousing peoples in the Democratic Party. You don't find a lot of sheeps and wolves. You just find people. You find wild cards. You find people that are passionate. You find super progressives. You find people who want to fix this government like the French fix theirs. But uh, you still have a unifying theory of, look, government should work for people. Government's forgotten who they work for. And with foreign policy, we're wasting money, we're wasting American lives, and we're wasting our future.
Okay. Um, let's get back to some of your policy sort of pillars. You talk a lot about insurance, and you
Mm-hmm.
say that you'll fight for fair rates, clear rules, and faster claims. Here in Louisiana, obviously, insurance is one of those almost perpetual issues. You can campaign on it every single cycle. You could reuse whatever you talked about 20 years ago, and it would still be applicable today. Um,
It's
if
a
you
good
were in,
point. I'm going to remember that. That's a good
oh,
point. Maybe in 5 years we have something else to talk about.
I hope so. That would mean that
That's
people
a real
actually take
good
it
point, Quentin.
seriously. Um, w- if you were in Congress, what would you actually be able to do about insurance? What federal role do you think exists here, given that insurance regulation is part of the issue, is that it's often state driven, and so you can have 50 different insurance situations across the country.
That's where I would kind of reach back down and work with my state leaders and my state party and the state legislature, because there has to be some sort of coordination between the state government and the federal government. I see insurance as one of those bridges we could build. I can propose legislation and vote on legislation that nationalizes certain things or makes federal regulation standards.
Mhm.
Um, you know, Simple stuff like this must be clearly listed. You must clearly list this rather than hiding it on page 7. These are uniform standards that we can apply. Now that we've moved into technological and social advancement that's increasing at a rapid pace, we need to make sure that the laws and the regulations stay with those the pace of that, so people have access to open markets, people have access to fair and transparent costs, and then they know. And then another thing is you have to go back and we can't leave the Louisiana people out of this.
Yeah.
Like that's me. Maybe I'm the only one that'll go, hey y'all, we live in a place where there's a lot of storms, and y'all eat a lot of sausage, and y'all drive real fast. So let's talk about that. So we have to go back and deal with Louisianans and say, look, let's have better storm preparedness, right? Let's look at the sausage that we're eating and look for healthcare. How can government come back in and build more little Ward 3s and Ward 7s where people can go drink their coffee in the morning and walk sausage off? These are governmental functions that can
Yeah.
subsidize local plans, and we should have funds that are basically from the government that say, hey, community, here's some standards. If you meet this and you match this, then here's the funds you have access to. These should be combined funds that help people. And when you build those bridges between the state and the federal government, you actually begin to move forward progress that you said can take generations to move. Maybe we can do it in a few
Okay.
years, not generations.
Yeah, yeah, yeah. Because a few generations is still, yeah,
Yeah, no.
yeah.
I'm not. No. So I've said this out loud. You'll see me say this, and I hope you hold me to it, Quentin. All right.
All right.
I'm not a strongly worded letter kind of Democrat. I think that's a very good argument that a lot of Democrats have about their own party,
Hmm.
that a lot of us are just, well, we're going to write a very strongly worded letter about how PO'd we are about that, and let them know. Cool. But there are other legal ways that we can actually stop progress, stop the stuff that's going to advance against us, stop their
Hmm.
agenda, and hold it in its tracks. But we have to have control. We have to have control of these state legislatures. We have to have control of these federal legislatures so we at least get a chance because they've pushed it so hard and ignore us so much and don't give a
Hmm.
crap about our candidates and our elections because, like you said earlier, they're operating laissez faire. They just have carte
Hmm.
blanche. They do whatever they want.
Yeah.
That's their sort of attitude. And we just need the chance. And when we get the chance, we have the same team, you guys. Like let's not get uh legislature flip blue and then have not unifying message and too many different visions and infighting and waste the time that the pendulum is going to swing back on our side.
So Louisiana is obvious, we are often called an oil and gas state. A lot of it's because they certainly have gotten their tentacles here and they get the best sweetheart deals here. So this is
Mm-hmm.
sort of the mecca for them. And if I were part of industry, I'd be in Louisiana too, because you don't have to pay any taxes and nobody checks any of the receipts.
Correct.
But it's also a critical part of our economy, whether we like it or not. What do you think the energy future for Louisiana and by extension for the country looks like, especially right now where we're seeing some of the consequences of being overly reliant on one part of our portfolio, and then it has, an immediate impact on most families,
Yeah.
with gas prices skyrocketing as a result of a war of choice. What do you see as the energy future for Louisiana? And more specifically, what do you see as your relationship, should you get elected, with the largest industry in Louisiana? What do you think is an appropriate relationship for you to have, knowing that it's one of the biggest employers, it's one of the biggest economic drivers, but also you know
You're not.
uh, uh, you know your positions on other forms of energy and climate change and things like that. How do you reconcile that?
So we need to be a leader. Louisianians are tired of looking on lists and going, all right, we moved from 47th to 46th or
Yeah.
50th to 49th. Got Mississippi again this year. You know,
Thank
energy
God
is
for
one place.
Mississippi.
We're always we at the Gulf Coast,
Right.
from Corpus Christi to the Panhandle of Florida, have been exploited by energy companies.
Mhm.
Now that these energy companies are part of this billionaires we're fighting against, I mean, you're not going to win elections here in Louisiana campaigning against energy jobs. You're just not. And I don't think that we need to be against energy or energy jobs. We just need to be leaders in the field. And there's so many ways we could be leaders in the field. First of all, we're already leaders in LNG and the simple refinery of oil and all those things, that natural gas that are already here. We can not only continue to attract more of that and become a hub for that, but at the same time build the model for other communities around the world to follow, whereas those companies are expected to invest back into the community. You invest in the community in parks, clean waterways, infrastructure, where instead of taxing the people with sales tax, you have the energy come in and pay for some of this roads. Like there are a lot of people that take from Louisiana, and we need to take those people that take from Louisiana and just, I mean, they're not going to miss that 1%. They're not going to
Mhm.
miss that 2%. Things will get a little more expensive. The share will go down for a minute. But for you and me, your neighbor and my neighbor across the community center and in the back of the church pew, that 1 or 2% of these billions and billions of dollars that all these LNGs are and all these old energy companies, right,
Mhm.
are putting into can put into things that also help the community, build the community. At the same time, we have to be leaders in new energy. We have to be leaders in renewable energy. Um, I've been talking to people that are working with robots that are going to be helping
Mhm.
in the rice farms and
Yeah.
also to in the oil fields and the oil spills to actually separate all that. There's an amazing amount of conservation that can be done in and around Louisiana with the help of these energy companies because they want to attract good workers. People
Yeah.
come down here from all over the world to work in for these energy companies. They need good schools, they need good parks. We've got a lot of good golf courses in the third district. we could use more than just golf courses. We could use running tracks and parks and trails and
Yeah.
things that are not just for people that play golf. This is how we combine a vision for the future. There's something I encourage your listeners to check out. It's called Imagine SWLA. It is a quasi-governmental, but not. It's a super
Mm,
private organization that operates as a filter between developers, municipalities, grants that are coming in. And what they do is they're building a 50-year resilience plan. And their
okay.
50-year resilience plan is I think one of the most beautiful things that I've seen come out in my generation lifetime as I look at the systems around us. Because what they're doing is they're planning for generations, like you and I were talking about. They're building homes, they're clearing waterways, they're working with the municipalities to build affordable housing. So when these thousands of workers come in and then leave, that it's not just a trashed RV park. It's actual built, storm preparedness ready, um, government accessible, HUD housing qualified, these kinds of things. And these are long term solutions. And I think that's a difference. I think politics has been short sighted. I think Louisiana politics has been especially short sighted. And we need to try to build those bridges and fix those roads.
Okay. So if you were to get elected to Congress, do you have any committees in mind that you'd be lobbying to be on?
Yes, I do. The two that I'm looking for right now is the agriculture committee. The soybean farmers, the rice farmers, the crawfish farmers. Often those are the same people. Fun fact is Arkansas produces 3 times as much rice as Louisiana. Most
Mm,
Louisianans didn't know that. However, our congressional district, the third district, produces more rice than any congressional district in the U.S. So the agriculture is very important to me. Sitting on any of these energy committees, there's a couple of different ones that sort of touch into energy and oil and gas that are the heartbeat of that industry. I would
yeah.
be open to any of those committees, and I'm going to lobby to try to get my little freshman butt on the oversight committee
Mm,
because that's sort of that fourth pillar. We talk about human dignity, body autonomy. We talk about the working class. We talk about insurance and affordability and healthcare. But the last thing I'm running for that's a major pillar is oversight. It's really just oversight. What the hell are these people doing with our money? What are they doing with our future? And how are we holding these cats accountable? Because I think that particular committee, led correctly, enforced correctly, can change the way Congress operates and sort of get that bad taste out of people's mouth. I'm going to sponsor term legislation for the House. If I can get sponsorship, I'll take it. If I can get it out of committee, I'll take it. But we have to change the way government works, and that starts in November.
okay. I'm curious. They always used to say that the oversight committee and the judiciary committee were the places where they would put the loudest members of Congress because they could
Oh,
kind of,
good.
yeah, those are the C-SPAN committees. Those are the C-SPAN committees. But
Good. Yeah, hey, look, I give Jack Black. I do a lot. I get accused of it or
I
asked
could see
about
it.
it.
I could see it. Yeah.
A couple times a week. I plan to use my gregarious nature and my infectious personality and my passion and my drive to get attention. Point blank, to get your
Yeah.
attention, to get the attention of the primary voters, to get the attention of the general voters, and then to get the attention of Congress. So I really hope I get placed on somewhere where I can raise C-SPAN's ratings and get somebody to know what the heck is going on because I'd like to bring Main Street with me, right on my back.
Republicans used that strategy to great effectiveness in the 90s. They
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 did.
real they realized and it was Newt Gingrich and his crew. They realized that nobody was really watching C-SPAN and nobody knew that there was nobody else in the audience in Congress, so they just utilized the C-SPAN broadcasts as infomercials essentially.
Platforms, yeah.
Yeah.
Yep.
And it worked to great effectiveness because those little old ladies that were watching Wheel of Fortune would tune into C-SPAN and they'd see that, well, Republicans are making an argument and Democrats just aren't. They're just kind of giving them free reign. So I do certainly appreciate that. I wanted to you had mentioned robotics,
Mm.
that there were some companies that were starting to use robotics out in rice fields. I think you were saying.
That's frontline development. My oldest son works for Rugged Robotics in Houston, and they are a robotic company that builds a lot of underwater robots for
Mm-hmm.
oil and gas and the oil rigs and whatnot. But you're seeing. I talked to him, and I was talking to these rice farmers in Crowley. And when I say rice farmers, I mean thousands of acres. And so they had a lot to say about immigrant visas,
Mm-hmm.
crawfish prices,
Yep, yep, yep.
and robots to where people didn't have to get in the rice bin, of course, and these kind of new technologies that are coming to preserve and make the land that they're farming more sustainable. But what was your
So,
question? I'm sorry I interrupted you.
no, no, no. I appreciate the context. I'm curious. What do you believe? Because I think that the next Congress and probably the next few Congresses are going to be crucial in setting some of the rules of the road for what the future of the workforce looks like, particularly as it pertains to AI and robotics.
Right.
On one hand, obviously, AI and robotics could usher in some advancements that we used to dream about. It could make the world look like the Jetsons for a lot
That's
of
right.
us. And I've said many times that I think that we'll probably find a cure for cancer in large part due to advancements in AI.
Agreed.
But also the unique thing about AI that's unique from other technological revolutions is that while the argument in the past had been, well, yeah, this technology got rid of the shoe cobbler, but there are a bunch of other jobs that are now created. So it really just displaces jobs, but it doesn't eliminate like work.
Sure.
With AI, it is its promise and even its reality right now is not only that it eliminates the job, but it can also do all of the jobs that are ancillary to it. So it's not just displacing jobs; it's eliminating work, and that's
Right.
the argument that many people have, and and it's one of the fears that a lot of people have. What is the right balance between embracing AI for all of the good that it could potentially bring, but also protecting the human workforce? And when I say that out loud, it sounds like a sci-fi, like we're in a sci-fi
No,
movie, and
it's
I'm
the
asking
reality, man.
a futuristic candidate, for some
No, it's on our doorstep.
intergalactic, legislative body. But I like, what is the future of the human workforce as it relates to AI, and what's the role for Congress to have in setting those rules?
So one of the roles for Congress is to keep up with it. I was just a quick example is Anthropic.
Mm-hmm.
Anthropic is sort of like, and I tell people it's the Windows 98 for the government.
Mm-hmm.
Like it's literally so invasive into the government systems that most government, especially the military systems, can't run without it. And there was a big to do when Pete Hegseth and the administration wanted to basically excise Anthropic from
Mm-hmm.
their operating systems based on two things. Anthropic said, we will not, here's 99% of use. Okay. Here's what's not okay right now. One is the government wanted mass surveillance. Well, to your point, until Congress can get up and address in session and codify into law the protections for the Fourth Amendment so the government
Mm-hmm.
can't buy data from Cambridge Analytics style and all the different corporates and then use it against you for mass surveillance. That's Congress. That's the Fourth Amendment. That has to happen before Anthropic would do that. So they said, same thing with autonomous weaponry. Now, to mansplain, it means there's no person involved. And so the problem with that is reliability issues. Most of your users and viewers are, and yourself and I, are using AI in various functions,
Mm-hmm.
and there's still a reliability issue. Oh, six fingers. Oh, this, that, and the other. Oh, I forgot what you told me a minute ago. You can't have autonomous weaponry with that sort of reliability issues. So those are the big things that Congress can do. But when it comes down to the workforce specifically, I think what you're going to see is a renaissance, frankly. I think you're going to see people that have time to do more than just consume. And you're going to see
Yeah.
people go back. I've watched someone do needlepoint at the restaurant last night while I was eating. And I've watched these people picking up these artisan, these 19th century trades, skills, woodworking, bread baking from COVID, remember? And I think people are going to be able to actually go and reinvent themselves and become Americans and open Etsy stores and find some of the entrepreneurial spirit. Now, for those looking for still work, there's still going to be work. They're going to still have processes by which human labor is still involved. And if not just human labor, then AI assisted human labor. You're still going to have human foremen. I mean, you're right. This is Isaac Asimov. This is robots coming to life. So how does Congress adjudicate that or make sure that they are in the presence of what's happening? That's simply making sure that the companies that are doing this are subject to regulation from the people's house. Right now, the problem is they are only subject to regulation from Donald Trump himself, where they go to big dinners and they talk about monuments that they're building and they give him gold. Literally. So once we can bring that crew of tech billionaires back under the people's control a little bit, I think you're going to see the kind of things that are going to help AI remain a companion in the workforce.
Okay. Just a couple
Data
more.
centers. Sorry, water
Oh,
usage, climate change. Holy crap! How did we forget that? Louisiana. That's not in my district. They're building it in the third, but they're going to build
Richland.
stuff down here. Please look into the fact that some of these data centers are not good ethical environmental partners.
Yeah. The big one that Meta's building in Rayville, in Richland Parish, right now. I just talked with another candidate about it. It is becoming kind of our yeah, I mean, very similarly to the sweetheart deals that Louisiana has given to oil and gas. We've offered similarly to the data centers, and I it's interesting because the data centers make the same claim about prospective jobs, but it's even hollower coming from these AI companies because you know that part of their business model is going to be to automate these jobs, to
Right.
bring in AI. And so anything that they tell you about future jobs feels cruelly ironic.
Well, look, here's a tangent, but here's the things we face in the Democratic Party. I was talking to one of the biggest rice farmers in Louisiana the other day, and he was telling me about solar power.
Yeah.
And how solar power, they come in, they scrape the topsoil, and then the people can get 8 times. Sorry, I missed a finger. 8 times as much rent from soybean farming and whatnot. So a lot of these, sixth and seventh generation farms, they're actually, and the companies coming in, they're buying it with government grants to put solar in instead of where the farmland is. Now they're doing it in really fertile farmland, not out in land that wouldn't be more economically viable if used another way. Yeah. But the rice farmer I'm talking to, it's a land use issue. It's a personal, I'm an American. This is my dirt rights. He's like, so I don't, I'm always going to be on that side because I'm a farmer. But at the same time, we want regulations to where you don't have companies coming in buying up our farmland using government grants to take money out of America to build solar powers because it's green energy. And I'm like, wow, that's a big deal. That's a hard concept to sort of, because look who you're pitting against each other.
Yeah.
So, because you say, well, we can't put any more solar panels up there. Oh, you're going to have some super liberal people want to come choke you real bad because green energy is important, whether it's solar panels or not. Green energy is important. Sustainability is important. These bridges between new power and old power are important. So I want to give the constituents some of these conversations that I'm getting and say, look at who do you pick? Who do you pick? Because enough of you need to choose so I can go up there and say what you say rather than this is what I think. That's not my job. My job is to represent the people. I'm going to be myself and be authentic to the best job I can. But then my job is to listen and find out, here's the issue. What do the majority of my constituents think? Take my personal, move it to the side and take my representation to Congress. That's my job.
So that's actually a good segue. We only have a couple more questions, but that was a good segue to what I was going to ask, which is, politics is about choices, power, who you align with, and this might even sound like I'm kind of talking out of both sides of my mouth. While a primary is about showing your fidelity to Democratic issues enough that they can trust you in the general,
yeah.
What's an area where you would break with the Democratic Party if you thought your district demanded it?
What's an area I would break with the Democratic Party if what?
If it meant that it was in the interest of the district.
Well, that's an American's first issue. That's easy. I can't really determine necessarily this particular plank. I don't think it's going to be on. I mean, I don't think going against body autonomy or human dignity or anything like that's ever going to be in the best interest of Americans. Farm issues, job issues. There are some issues, affordability issues, insurance issues, healthcare issues, to where if you get about 60%, 65% of the people if I can get 65% of the people to agree with me, 70% of the people to say this is what we think, that's not going to be one party. It's not. You're going to have bases on people on both sides mad every time. But again, 67% of any group of people, and we can rewrite the whole Constitution.
Is there any major area is there any major policy position that the Democratic Party has largely right now that you either disagree with or think that the way that they're going about it is incorrect?
No, not policy wise.
Okay.
Not policy wise. I don't have a single bone to pick with the Democratic Party policy wise, national platform wise. I'm happy that, in my opinion, we stayed out of some of the demonizing our opponents and our Americans on the other side.
Mm-hmm.
But I'm not sure where an issue would arise that would break with the Democratic Party, but I could see myself getting with a big majority of the people and having super progressives mad at me for something. But I mean, a dime to a dollar, I bet the same day the alt-right's mad at me for the same thing. So I'm okay with that. And if I lose a primary because I'm willing to work with the other side, or I'm willing to not work with them and sacrifice my values, because see, I've been told about that. People have asked me point blank, well, you're going to get up there and you have to trade a vote for a vote, and the vote's on body autonomy or LGBTQ plus issues, or any of that stuff. No. Hear me clearly. I'm talking about affordability, working class, those sort of mechanics. Those are where we need to come together. The human issues, the issues that become a meme or become a social media post that says these values aren't political, we're not about to make them political. Those are just our values that aren't going to change.
Yeah. And I don't know if it's even considered the alt-right anymore. I think it's the mainstream right at this point.
Yeah.
Okay, so to kind of close out,
Did that answer your question?
it did. I think so.
Okay.
I think so.
Okay.
If you had 1 minute to speak directly to a skeptical Democratic voter in the third district, someone who wants to beat Clay Higgins, wants a serious candidate, not a protest vote, but isn't sure yet about who to vote for. If Democratic primary voters take nothing else from this conversation, what is the one thing you want them to understand about John Day?
The one thing I want them to understand about John Day is I'm going to get up early and stay up late. I'm going to show up. I'm going to work hard, and I'm going to listen. I have the ability, the skill sets, the life experience, the work experience, the career know-how to translate the things I learn to the folks. And I have the calm patience and willingness to be there and show up and listen so I can translate them back up to Washington. And the one thing that I need people to understand is if you're watching this, you're part of the winning solution. If you can hear my voice, you're part of the winning solution. But we have to participate. We have to share this message that we can win this seat, and Clay Higgins can go this November, and you can have people in the people's house. And the last thing I'll say is my cell phone number is still on there. I don't plan on changing that anytime soon. We'll see. I'm reachable. Email me, call me. I'll make time for you.
Well, that is a dangerous game. I put out my cell phone number a couple years ago, and I still get little old ladies that call me in the middle of the night just wanting to share their thoughts. But it is, I think that it does say something about the accessibility of a public servant that you are willing to be on call. So
it's my job now. I look at this from the moment I signed up. I look at this as a full-time job, and I'm acting and working like I have in my other careers. And when I'm working in my careers, I usually work a 65 to 70-hour work week.
Well, I think that people appreciate a public servant that actually takes the job seriously and that the job is to serve.
That's
So,
right.
Mr. John Day, Democratic candidate for Congress in Louisiana's 3rd District, running in a competitive Democratic primary, but hoping for the chance to be the nominee to run against the nation's worst congressman, Clay Higgins. Thank you for joining me, Mr. Day.
Thank you for having me, Quentin. I appreciate it. Look forward to talking to you again soon.